Tissues for my issue.
Yeah, grab some tissues for your issues. There should be a box over here. There might be another box elsewhere. Okay. So there's another box over here. There's a box over there. The spray cleaner is over here if you need it. And I've also got some other stuff in here and in the other room. Okay, so guys, what I need everyone to do real quick is draw your X and Y axis like we did yesterday, right? So we've got our X-axis here. I'm sorry, this is our Y-axis. And our X-axis over here. And what are our X and Y axes going to be labeled today?
Profit.
No, not profit. Okay, price and quantity, and which one goes where? So price is our Y, and quantity is going to be our X, right? And we did this yesterday, so you should be at least vaguely familiar with these concepts a little bit. Yeah, probably best to put those away. All right. So now if we're going to be drawing two different curves here, and what are they called? I heard one, supply and demand curves. That's what they are, okay? And so if I start by drawing a line from down here and draw it up, what's that? That is our supply curve, and how do we know that that is our supply curve? Because it's going up, right? Assuming that we're in a left to right reading culture, which is what we are. We draw another curve, and it's going to have almost the opposite slope. It's going to go like this, and this is our demand curve. And how do we know this is our demand curve? Which way is it sloping?
Negative.
Down. Yes, it has a negative slope. And what is supply? What's the general rule of our supply curve? And what's the relationship between these two things? Okay, so as the price of goods goes up, our desire to supply them goes up as well. Or we're willing to supply more of them at a higher price. How does that relate to demand? Guys, if you have headphones in your ear, pull them out. Seriously. I know music is cool and everything, but you're screwing yourself over. Okay, so that's the relationship of supply. As the price of goods goes up, I'm willing to supply more of them. What about demand? As the price of goods goes up, how many of them am I demanding? Less and less and less. Okay. As the price goes up, I know it looks like this is going to a higher, but it's going to a lower point on the x-axis. Okay, because quantity demanded is going down. Are these two things static? Are they fixed in place? No. Are they fixed in time? No, they're not. Okay. In fact, what are we talking about in terms of assuming that this is what the whole of the economy looks like? What's the problem with that? Yeah, life is not lived on a graph, exactly. We are not static, we are dynamic. It's made up of more than just lines and equations. At least I'd like to think of myself as more than just an equation, right? In fact, I want to show you guys something real quickly that I just saw this morning. So if you take a look at the board, assuming I get the right thing up, because I got like 18 different tabs open. Okay. Foundation for Economic Education, huge fan. Okay, sticker right here. That entire counter is covered with stuff from the Foundation for Economic Education. Great organization. One of the things they put out on a regular basis is a magazine. It's a monthly magazine called The Freeman. And they try to take economic principles and apply them to everyday things. So right here, there's an article about taking the ideas of opportunity costs and applying them to fantasy football. Gee, that sounds familiar because Learn Liberty just did a whole series on that. Back in the back, you've got an article on the economics of the corn dog, or rather, the economics of waiting in line for a corn dog. I know it seems silly, but it's the economic principles, and they're everywhere. In economic principles of waiting in line for the corn dog?
Or just like a different one than ones that they wrote.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, so one that has not been published in the Freeman, but a lot of people have looked at it. In fact, there's a video on it, the economics of the Lego movie, because that's going to play heavily into what we're going to be doing next week. And I wish we had time to watch the Lego movie in class, but I'm sorry, we don't. We don't have time.
Should I go watch it?
Maybe we'll watch segments of it. Okay. So anyway, in today's online edition of the Freeman, there is an article written by Miss Sarah Squire that takes the ideas of central planning versus the idea that people are more than chessmen to be moved around on a game board. And she put it all together, relating it back to the ideas of The Princess Bride. How many of you have seen the movie? How many of you have read the book? Okay, it's a book first, and because she's kind of a literature buff, it's written from the perspective of the book. Okay, but it's the idea. Human action is unpredictable. I can predict what is most likely to happen, but can I tell you exactly what's going to happen? No, why not? It's impossible to know. I can't know exactly what you're going to do. I can tell you what is likely to happen, but that if I build economic policy around what's likely to happen, I'm not going to be very satisfied with the results. Anyway, also, if you're interested, if you want to check out the Freeman, you go to feed.org, or you've got stuff all over. I've had a couple pieces published in the Freeman. In fact, I think I told you guys about the one I did for the Make It Rain game. Yeah, and Frozen. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I wasn't sure if I told you guys or not. I'm super excited because I love the organization.
You just like submit stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, you do. It's not just like random things that I write. There's other places that I might submit random things that I write. This requires a little bit more thought and a little bit more research. They want to share stuff that people know what they're talking about, which is why I've only ever had 2 pieces published by them.
So you know what you're talking about.
So I know what I'm talking about. That's right. Okay. So what I want to look at today is what makes up supply and demand, what contributes to it moving around, because it does move around all the time. And that's what makes it so unpredictable. And now we're going to look at the determinants of demand first, because who is demanding stuff in general? Who are the demanders? Yeah, consumers, us, the mass public, right? Now, there's times when it's opposites, but for most goods and services, we're talking about us, the consumers, as the demanders. Okay. So we're going to look over here. If any of you go to U of A, you might recognize this. I mean, not right now, obviously, but if you go in the future, you might recognize this gentleman, Stephen Reff. He's a professor of economics down at the U of A, and these are resources that he put together through a grant from the Thomas R. Brown Foundation, which is locally here. So here we go. I'm going to show you guys the determinants of demand, and there are 8 of them. The first one is simply the number of consumers. The number of consumers who desire the product and who have the ability to buy the product. So think about this. Do you think that there's more demand, greater demand for what is that? The milk. Shamrock, not Carnation. Shamrock chocolate milk. Do you think there's more demand for Shamrock chocolate milk, Shamrock Farms chocolate milk, or do you think there's more demand for paintings done by Vincent van Gogh?
Chocolate milk.
Now hold on, because you would say, well, everyone wants the Van Gogh painting, right? Boom. And it's not even that they don't want to pay the price. They don't even have the ability to pay the price. I don't care. I mean, sure, maybe you drop the price of the Van Gogh down to about $35, and then I'm on board. Okay. But up until that point, I'm not even considered a potential consumer. So demand for that product is really, really low. So hold on. How can demand be low but the price be really high? Because what else is low? The supply, right? The supply of Vincent van Gogh paintings is also very low, and it's a very, very steep supply and demand curve, okay? But the number of consumers changes the demand curve, which means as a product gains in popularity or gains in adoption rates, what happens to the demand for that product? It's going to go up. All right. Oops, let's look here at our income that we're going to spend on normal goods, meaning how much money do people have that we spend on household staple items, on groceries, on clothing, on transportation, on things like education, okay? But then also, how much of our income do we spend on what we call inferior goods? And inferior doesn't necessarily mean that they're lower quality. It means they're lower priority. Some people call this discretionary spending. Okay, so these are things that, they're not necessarily junk goods, but they're things that you don't need. Entertainment. Yeah, that's true. But these are things that you don't even need to sustain life. So assuming that's your objective. These are things like entertainment, yeah, high-end phones, high-end clothing, things like that. What about consumer preferences? Do consumer preferences, I mean, are there things that like go in and out of fashion? Things that are cool one day and not cool the next? Okay, quick example of that. And I know this trend is a few years old, but that means that you guys were like right smack dab in the middle of it because it happened when you were in middle school, is silly bands. You all know silly bands, right? They were little rubber bands that came in different shapes. I'm hoping that swag never really, or at least, I mean, I know it's caught on, but I'm hoping that it never goes like full on mainstream because it's ridiculous.
It was mainstream, but I feel like it's died down a lot.
Exactly. Not Bogle's mainstream. Okay. But trends, these are just fashions and differences, consumer preferences. The price of a substitute good. Okay, so think about this. What's a substitute good for Shamrock Farms chocolate milk? What's that? Yoo-hoo! Perfect example, because it's for people that want a chocolatey beverage. What's the price? There's also chocolate soda. You can get chocolate soda. No, there's... You can get bacon. You can get all kinds of... Okay, there's a store in Scottsdale called Pop's Soda Shop. Seriously, Pop's Soda Shop, they have everything, and if they don't have it, they will order it for you. What's that? No, everything. I mean, any kind of soda. Guys, they used to have, they can't carry it anymore, but they used to have a hemp-flavored soda pop. That doesn't sound very appealing to me, but they used to have it, okay? So when I go to the store and I'm going to buy a chocolatey flavored beverage, because that's what I have in my mind, does my preference for Shamrock Farms chocolate milk, is that influenced by the price of the Yoo-hoo? Yeah. Now, which one's generally more expensive, the Yoo-hoo or the chocolate milk? What do you guys think?
I don't drink you.
Honestly, don't even know.
Yeah.
So you guys are telling me you're up here. You're not even consumers. You're not even counted as consumers in the chocolate milk because your preferences don't align. So you don't even care what the prices of the substitute are, right? Okay. Anytime Oxford's laughing, I know something's up. Okay, what about prices of complementary goods? What's a complementary good? What does that mean? Okay, ketchup and mustard, or chips and salsa, guacamole, right? Bean dip. Gas in your car. In fact, that's a perfect example that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So, guys, imagine this. Imagine you're in the market for a new video game console, and you can choose between the Xbox One and a PS4. Those are the two you got your eyes on. But, and I know this is not true, but let's say you discover that the controllers for the Xbox One each cost $1,000. Exactly. Because even though the consoles are similar in price, what's going to impact your decision? The price of a complementary product, the controllers. Buying a car that's not fuel efficient. How do people's buying behaviors change when gasoline gets more and more expensive? Okay, smart cars, hybrids, electric cars. My wife drives a Ford Excursion. It's an 05. It's gigantic. It's not lifted. But it doesn't have to be because it's gigantic. Okay, it's still bigger than my F-150. Like it's built on the same frame as the F-250, not on the F-150. Okay. Mine is an 04. What happened in 05? What did Ford do with the Excursion in 05?
Made it bigger.
No.
Made it smaller?
No.
They stopped it.
They stopped production of it. Why? Okay, because if you look at gas prices over time, gas prices had been, $1 up to $2. Okay, and now we started seeing $3 a gallon gas, and even in 2008, 2009, we started seeing $4 a gallon gas, $4.50, almost $5 a gallon for gas. What do you think consumers wanted to buy? Did they want to buy big SUVs? They're looking to buy small hybrids, right? To the point that, do you know what they had to do to get people to buy SUVs? They would actually spend more money, retrofit the SUVs with a little teeny tiny natural gas, like a liquid petroleum gas tank, so that people could get a $7,000 tax credit for buying one of those retrofitted SUVs. And that was the only way they could get people to buy these big giant SUVs. Yeah.
I have a question. So, electric cars, wouldn't it just take like the same amount of electricity to like fill it up as it would cost for gas?
So you're saying, don't they ultimately use the same amount of fuel?
Exactly.
Yes, they do. In fact,
What's the point?
because the point is, one makes you feel like you're better than everyone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you do. The question is it actually any more environmentally responsible? Which pollutes more, burning gasoline, burning diesel, or burning coal? Which pollutes more? Coal. Do you know where 80% of our electricity in this country comes from? Burning coal, coal-fired power plants. And that's not to say that one of those things is bad or better, but if your incentive, if your desire is to be more energy efficient, to be more environmentally responsible, driving an electric car is not the option. Riding a bike I'm not as excited about plutonium energy as there's a new kind of radioactive energy, a new kind of nuclear energy that is thallium. I think it's thallium-based energy. I'm super excited about opportunities for thallium-based energy. You can make nuclear batteries, guys. Nuclear batteries using thallium energy. I don't know how they work like that. I just read that you can do them on a very small scale. Okay. Expected future prices by consumers. If you think that a product is about to get way, way more expensive, what are you going to do?
Buy more of it.
Buy a ton of it. When?
Now.
Now. Buy it now while it's cheap. Okay? If you... Yeah, and this is essentially the idea. This, in fact, dang, I don't know why I didn't think of this before. Because the ultimate goal of marketing is to try and drive demand. Okay? Businesses usually only have control over the supply side of this equation, but the ultimate goal of marketing is to try and influence demand as often as much as possible. So if you can convince consumers that prices are about to skyrocket on a specific good, what's that going to encourage them to do? Buy more of it now. Okay? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. Right? And this, no, you actually saw this. This was one of the big people who like to use gold as an investment tool are often called gold bugs. And a lot of the way that gold bugs sell other people on the idea that gold is going to be valuable is by painting this very fatalistic picture of what the future of the economy is going to look like. We just spent all this time looking at what fiat money is. What if I could tell you that fiat money was going to be absolutely worthless tomorrow? And I showed you how your gold retains your value over time, right? What are you going to do? I'm going to go out and I'm going to take all my cash and I'm going to convert it into gold, right?
Silver. I like silver.
Or silver, okay? Precious metals of some kind. I've got... You can get investment grade copper. Yeah, copper's super cheap.
Copper?
No, super cheap. It's more expensive than a penny, but it's something like $4 a pound. I could pull it up, but it's, you know. Everything else they measure by the ounce, and copper it's by the pound. Pennies are about 1% copper right now. It's very, very thin coating on the outside. Okay, but if I can convince you that the price is going to be higher in the future than it is right now, boom, I just drove up demand, and by driving up demand, what did I just do? I just drove up prices. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
But won't gold always be valuable? Like,
Yeah, always, I don't know. It will always have a value, but not necessarily as a monetary. Yes. Correct. Because you can always do something else with it.
Do you think in the future they're going to do like nuclear mining out in space?
There's actually an organization right now that exists right now that is exploring mining in the asteroid belt between Earth and Mars, or just beyond Mars? Okay, between Earth and Mars, because no, they've shown that there are asteroids floating in that asteroid belt that are composed almost entirely of gold. And so they said, well, I can't remember what it's called. But the idea is, well, if I can get to it and mine that first, who's rich? Well, I'm waiting for the references to the movie Avatar to start showing. Yeah, let's just go harvesting the resources from other planets. That always turns out well, right?
Well, when you find some flying blue.
Yeah, if we find flying blue people that can talk to trees, let's not destroy them this time. Okay, so let's look at an example of this. Let's look at an example of what drives demand. So let's look at our supply and demand interactive. Okay. Oh, yes. Next slide, please, Mr. Bogle. So we got our chart. This should look familiar to you guys, right? This is our supply and our demand curve. Which one is our supply curve? The one with the S next to it, very observant. The one that's going up, and the demand curve would then be the one that's sloping downward, okay? And so let's come up with a product. Someone name a product for me. Okay, tissues. Tissues, perfect. We got to come up with a, you guys, seriously, that should be like a brand. Tissues? But we've got to like, I don't know.
And you can go up to people and be like, dude, you have major issues.
But you can't like call other people out for their issues. It's supposed to be like a way of helping people recognize their own issues. Exactly, just like that. Okay. Because that's what's going to cause people to have more issues. Hey, maybe that's going to be a driver of demand.
Wait, but then they might not want to buy our tissue because we said they have tissue.
They might not buy our brand. But this is where you get guerrilla marketing involved, and you get their friends in there, and their friends, you know, your friends are the ones pointing out to, hey, man, you got some issues. Here, I got some tissues for you. And meanwhile, you're slipping some money in their friend's back pocket. Well, back pocket, yeah. You know, you don't go for the front pocket. Yeah, you just give them a percentage. That's what's called guerrilla marketing, guys. That's your street team. No, but I should.
Yo, pay me $5 and I'll come.
I don't know. Why would I pay you $5 when the most expensive thing on my menu is $6?
Like walk around the park and be like, oh, this kid's ice is so good.
You think I don't make my kids do that all the time? Oh, I do. Okay.
You really?
Yeah, so let's look at this. I do. Absolutely, I do. Okay, so let's assume, now why is this a dangerous assumption? But let's assume that our market for tissues is in equilibrium right now. One, why is that a dangerous assumption?
Because you can't assume that.
We don't know that information, right? There's no way of knowing that information. We don't know what the optimum quantity of tissues is, and we don't know what the optimum price of tissues is, or what this exact clearing price is. All we know is we're involved in the process of trying to discover it. Trying, and it's an ongoing process, okay? So here we've got our issues, or I'm sorry, our tissues for people with issues, and we're trying to sell them. What's something that we can do to try to drive demand?
Make people sad.
Make people sad. We sponsor a movie on the Hallmark Channel, right?
Just go around telling people that their family members died, but they didn't know about it.
Okay, well, you can't necessarily lie to people because they're not going to be repeat customers. I've seen something similar to it. Oh, yeah, no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Okay. This fake death announcement brought to you by... No, it's not going to work. And we pounce. Okay, so this is a fantastic marketing strategy. Ricola did this. You guys all know what Ricola cough drops are, right? Exactly. They're the funny Swiss ones. They planted people, or rather they hired people in major cities across the country, and they would fake cough. Like they'd get on the bus, or they'd just go somewhere in public and they go, and it was a very distinctive fake cough just like that. And if you offered that person a Ricola cough drop, then you get like a ton of money, some big reward or something like that. And the idea was not only to get people to carry Ricola cough drops around with them, but to offer them to strangers who are coughing. So now who's using Ricola cough drops? Everyone and their stinking grandma. That's a genius strategy. Hold on. Is Ricola spending any of that money? For what? Their marketing strategy is just to give away what's the likelihood that someone's actually going to find that one mystery shopper in a major metropolitan city? It's pretty slim, right? And the likelihood that the person is going to happen to have a Ricola cough, that's pretty slim. Guys, that is a genius marketing strategy. How does this change the demand for cough drops? What do you think it's going to do? Is it going to increase demand for cough drops, for Ricola cough drops, or is it going to decrease demand? Okay, and if we increase the demand for Ricola cough drops, two things happen. And I want you guys to draw this out, but I'm going to show you because I want you to draw a special way. Because we see three different things happening here. First of all, what was the driver? What was the determinant? More consumers of the product. It's more in fashion. You've changed, or not necessarily fashionable, but you've changed consumer preferences. Because while consumers don't necessarily have the preference for Ricola cough drops, they do have the preference for playing the lottery, which is essentially what they're doing. The chance to win a ton of money. So what happens? The entire demand curve shifts. And I want you to notice this because this is very, very important. The demand curve does not shift up. It shifts, in this case, it's going to shift to the right. But yes, it shifts left and right. And I know in here it looks like it's shifting up. But this is the point. The point is that before, at this price point, I had this quantity demanded. And now, because there's more people who want to buy them, at this specific price point, all I am is I'm shifting further over on the quantity demanded side. Okay? And that's going to be the case at every single price point until you see that the entire demand curve has shifted to the right in this case. Yeah, exactly. If you want to be, this is getting your customers to do your advertising for you is the single most effective marketing strategy there is. Getting your customers to sell your product for you. That's the whole idea behind multi-level marketing, which I personally happen to despise that business model. But why is it so popular? Because it works. Not necessarily for everyone, but who does it work for? The people at the top. Okay. What happened as a result of demand shifting to the right? What two other things were impacted? You see them with arrows. What's that?
Quantity and price.
Okay, quantity. So before, we were at this quantity demanded. This was the number of cough drops people wanted to buy, and people were willing to pay a higher price for them. So this is the price. Now, as our demand curve shifts to the right, we notice that our new equilibrium point is further this way. So now it's our new quantity demanded. Can I sell more cough drops than I could before?
Yes.
Yes, I can. Now, notice that price also goes up. Does that mean that I'm necessarily going to charge a higher price? It doesn't mean that I'm going to. It means that I could, that I have that opportunity. Chances are I'm not going to see an increase in the price unless they start running out of cough drops. Okay? So let's look at this. If I maintain this same price point, this is a quantity that I'm actually going to sell. Does that make sense? Okay. So essentially what I'd be doing is I'd be extending, if I maintain the price to be the same, because remember, this is the market clearing price, doesn't mean it's the actual selling price. So if I maintain at this price, I can sell more quantity at that same price. And price times quantity sold, That's your recipe for revenue right there. And revenues are what you turn into profits. Okay. Man, we're having way too much fun in here. All right, so this is an example of shifting demand. Let's shift gears a little bit. And now let's switch over to looking at supply. What are some of the determinants of supply? First of all, who's doing supplying? Companies, most of the time. Suppliers, yes. Providers, producers. What's one market where you guys are actually the suppliers and businesses are the consumers? What's something that businesses buy from you? Huh? Okay, sometimes like how many of you have a job? For your labor. The labor market is flipped on its head. In the labor market, you guys are the suppliers, businesses are the consumers. All right? So just keep that in mind. Oops. Okay, so let's look at the determinants now of supply. These are things that are going to influence the supply curve, which means that I'm going to now need to erase the changes to my demand curve. All right, so have one demand curve, one supply curve on your desk somewhere so that you can draw them. Well, the same way that the number of consumers influences the demand curve, the number of businesses working in that industry, or rather the number of suppliers, influence supply. What about the cost of producing those goods? If I have something that costs me a lot of money to manufacture, and all of a sudden it gets more and more and more expensive, am I as willing to supply at a low price? No, now I'm only willing to supply anything at a very high price because the cost went up. Physical availability of resources. Does that one not work, or you just switch into a different color? Okay. What about the availability of resources? What's that? Oh, okay. If there's no trees, how willing are people to make pencils? Yeah. They'll make them out of something else. They'll make them out of recycled paper. They'll make them out of plastic. They'll make them out of recycled tires, which I used to see as a kid.
Oh, have you seen the newspaper ones that smell good?
They like make them out of recycled newspapers?
Pencils, yeah.
They make them out of recycled newspaper?
Yeah.
They sell them at my kid's school for like $3 a piece. Friggin' ripoff.
The Smentals?
Yeah. No, they are not worth it.
Yeah, no, they smell good.
I know, they have a whole bunch of different flavors. Trust me, my kids come home with them every year. Okay, so how much of the input is available is going to change how willing producers are to supply that good at various price points. What about technology? How does technology change supply? Manufacturing processes, right? New technology can reduce my costs of production, which makes it so that I'm willing to supply more at the same price. Anything else? Is there anything else technology can do? Okay, it can help me try to influence demand. It can decrease the cost of selling an item, decrease the transaction costs of advertising and all that. Can it actually create new resources where there were none before? Yeah, guys, I want to show you something. This is so cool. Okay. This is the latest and greatest technological advancement in pretty much the last, I don't know, probably in the last 3 decades, I would say, maybe 2 decades, okay? I'm going to make it for you right here. Not graphite, but it's made with graphite. This is now a substance, or similar to a substance, called graphene. Graphene is essentially graphite, or carbon atoms laid together, organized on a single layer, on a atomic, or on the molecular level. And graphene is very highly conductive. It's incredibly strong. I know you go, Bogle, that's not strong. It didn't make the paper any stronger. Okay, I know. But it's because this is a single layer of graphene. What if I had multiple layers of graphene interconnected? It's incredibly strong. Like I said, it's conducive to electricity. They are currently making water filters out of graphene that filter water at the molecular level.
They're getting rid of like fluoride.
They're getting rid of everything. It's like 99.999% of contaminants.
That's like everything anyway.
It does.
It's rid of 99.
But then it's very easy to then add the alkalinity to it later on, add the specific minerals that you want. In fact, you guys will often see that in, like, especially in water that's purified through what's that? The evaporation process. What do they call it?
Evaporation.
It's not osmosis. Reverse osmosis is the most common. Distilling, distilled water. Distilled water will often say on it, minerals added for taste. Because when you distill water, it gets most of the heavy minerals out. A graphene filter will literally get out everything because it filters water on a molecular level. Guys, that's insane. It's a lead stinking pencil. That's all it is. And that's how they developed it. They were playing with it for its electrical conductivity. And someone said, yeah, how does that work? I don't know. Let's look it up. MIT, they came up with this. Does that reduce the cost of producing clean drinking water for millions of the world's people? Eventually it will. Right now we're not there yet, but it will.
So I can clean water with a pencil?
No. No. Unless you know the process by which you would convert the graphite tip of your pencil to a graphene water filter, no. Okay, and the last one is expected future P by supplier. What are we talking about by P in this case? Price. The expected future price by the supplier. Meaning, if the supplier thinks that the prices are going to go up in the future, what do?
They create more.
I'm going to produce more of it because I think that I can sell it at a higher price in the future than I can sell it for right now. Okay? I didn't even show you guys expected future price and expected future cost for drivers of demand, did I? Bogle, you're slacking. Okay. Expected future prices drive both suppliers and demand. Because, oh yeah, I did. If you expect the price of something is going to go up, you're going to buy more of it today. If you expect the price is going to go up in the future, you're going to produce more of it today. What ends up happening is as suppliers are, or as demanders are demanding more, but as suppliers are producing more, what happens to the actual future cost? It stays relatively stable. Okay? Behaviors. So this is something that I want you guys to understand. Because you'll hear in the news a lot, well, the cost of gasoline is going up because of the oil speculators. I'm sorry, but nothing could be further from the truth. Because the speculators, they think that the price is going to go up in the future. So what are they doing? They're actually buying at a lower price right now than what it's going to be in the future, so that in the future the price is not as high as it would be otherwise. Speculators, if anything, do a lot of work to stabilize prices and to eliminate how erratic price fluctuations are. Okay. And in all of this, what's the purpose of the supply and the demand? What are you pointing at? Where do I got?
The hemp bar from above.
Oh, it's granola bars.
Made out of hemp?
Yeah, there's hemp seed in these granola bars. You can get, well, guys, there's nothing like,
I know.
there's no THC in any of
Were there
this.
any in there?
No, I ate them all.
Were they good?
Yeah, they're all right. I have, you can buy like bagged hemp seed at Costco, whole hemp seed. And it's really healthy. It's really good for you. But it doesn't have any of the, yeah, it doesn't have any THC in it that's going to get you high. The reason why I have this in here is because that's bold marketing to put an actual marijuana leaf on your product. Exactly. And that's why I have it in here.
I saw it and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a pot leaf or that's either like.
How is that going to influence the demand for that product? First of all, people who aren't familiar with marijuana, are they going to know what a pot leaf looks like? Some of them are, some of them are not. Are they going to make their purchasing decision based on whether or not it has a pot leaf on there? No.
Some people will though. They'll see it and they'll be like, this is bad.
Some people might, okay. But what happens to the people who are potheads and they see those granola bars? They're like, oh, bro, I got to buy these. Okay. And does that change their purchasing behavior? Absolutely it does. Does it have, is it going to have any, like, mind-altering effects on them? Not at all. Not at all. But they don't. Okay, that's the whole point. They might. They might. Okay, so these are the determinants of supply, and the same way that they shift demand, companies shift supply. Okay, because of these determinants. Now, something I want to show you guys real quickly. Let's just do this real quick. So if, let's say supply were to shift to the left. First of all, what's something that might make supply shift to the left?
Bad product.
No, wouldn't it be good product?
We're looking at, okay, who's supplying? We're not looking at demand, so we're not looking at consumer behavior. What's going to make a company produce less of a product?
Price going down.
Not necessarily the price going down. The cost of manufacturing going up is going to cause them to produce less. Meaning the supply, the quantity that they produce at every price point is going to go down. Yeah.
Why would they produce less if the price of production going up? Why not just raise the price of the product and then keep making the same amount?
So here's the thing: is this? I'm not looking at the quantity that they produce. Okay. Because let's say they were producing at this quantity before, and they continue producing at that quantity, okay? Now we're at two different price points, right? Do customers necessarily want to pay that higher price? No. So if demand is still down here, and I try and sell at this, at this higher price point, now this is my quantity supplied, and this is my quantity demanded. And those don't jive, do they? So all of this right here is unsold product. Remember, this is simply the market clearing price. It doesn't mean that's what the price actually is. It just means it's the market clearing price. And do we know what equilibrium is? No. Okay. All we're doing is we are involved in a process of trying to discover it. All right. I've got a video, and I didn't get to finish this with first hour, so I want to watch it with you guys right now. Partly we didn't get to finish it because Mr. Bogle likes to flap his gums and talk an awful lot.
I won't let us talk every now and then.
Higher price is necessary. The pricing system offers an information generating, gathering, and transmitting process that's able to call up widely dispersed information that no central planning agency, let alone any individual, can know, possess, or control on their own. Prices play a key role in transmitting economic information. Without even knowing the intricate market conditions of every good and service produced and consumed, and all the resources used to produce them, producers and consumers around the world alter their behavior to even small changes in market conditions via the price system. For example, tin is a resource used in many of the products we consume on an everyday basis. Yet many consumers and even producers know little about the market for tin. Without knowing the market conditions for tin, producers and consumers will automatically adjust their behavior when there's a change in price.
Okay, do you guys know why gas goes up and down every single day, or why the price of gas fluctuates? Okay, there's lots of different reasons why it might happen. The question is, do you have to know all those things that drive it in order to decide whether or not you're going to buy it? You don't have to know all those things. All you know is that price is a heck of a lot higher. Time to start getting up and filling up at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Denser gas, you get more for, yeah.
Maybe if I drove a smaller car.
But it might make you drive less, right? It might make you change your behaviors in other ways, okay? This is the idea right here, is that you automatically adjust your behavior without knowing all the information that's hidden behind the price. And you don't have to know all that information. All you have to know is the price. The price is the language that the market speaks. What happens when we go in and start trying to manipulate the price? Can we control it? We'll see.
The disruption of supply of tin, say mine glass, will automatically lead to the rise in the price of tin and products made from tin. Producers don't need to know why the price has gone up, only that they can now charge more for tin. This leads tin producers to increase the supply of tin by, for example, working longer hours or using more intensive mining techniques. Likewise, consumers see the increase in price will use fewer products made of tin. As we have seen, both producers and consumers have adjusted their behavior to account for the new market conditions of tin. As a response, we change the price. Prices play a vital role in generating, aggregating, and transmitting the knowledge that is dispersed around the world. It would take months, maybe even years, for government officials to evaluate the current production levels of the remaining lines, evaluate new technologies to decide which lines can produce more tin. Furthermore, it is nearly impossible for a government agency to track down all the users of tin and prioritize their needs. In a free market, prices adjust automatically to changes in conditions, preferences, and technology, relaying the relevant information to producers and consumers. Governments frequently attempt to interfere with this formation of prices, either by replacing the price system with central planning board or by adjusting prices using price controls. Throughout history, this has led to scarce resources being grossly misallocated. This is why it is necessary to allow the price system to function free of government interference.
Okay, so what happens when we try to manipulate the price system? It often has what we call negative unintended consequences. We're going to look a little bit more at those next week, and I will see you guys tomorrow.